So I think that's kind of a wash with that one, because that's all I'm ever doing. I mean, I'm in the middle. I'm actually not in the middle. I finally finished part of the first major part of the remodel last year, and we're rebricking the rest of the house now. We started rebricking it in the addition last year, rebricking the rest of the house, because the brick on the house now is it's from 1958, and it's actually in perfect condition. It's really cool. It's a very nice brick. And it's really big, it's 14 inches long, Norman size it's called, which most of you don't know what that means. But anyway, it's a very big brick, like stone looking. But it's ugly. I hate the color. It's like a reddish pink, and it's so ugly. So rebricking the entire house in a really modern dark gray brick. And the windows are all black aluminum clad, and it's going to be really modern looking when I'm done with it. But anyway, so we're rebricking the middle of this now after we finish the second part of the addition, which is on the other side of the house, which is a small additional bathroom and a new mudroom and some garage stuff we're doing. So once that's all done, we're going to rebrick the whole house, and then when that's done, finish the inside of the house, and then next year we're going to do all the landscaping and be done finally, and add the pool and everything else. So, and the driveway is a mess, so we're going to finish that too. But it's a slow process, but for me, it's something I love to do because it's what I do for a living. It's just hard to do it when I'm doing it for everybody else at the same time for all my clients. I'm always working for them, and so that takes up all my time, and of course I get paid for it very well, and that's good, but I'm it's hard to neglect my own space sometimes, and I won't let anybody else do it. In terms of, I'm not doing the actual physical labor obviously by myself, but I mean I have to oversee the contractors, and so I have to have time to actually be home to oversee them, to do that, and it's rare that I'm able to do that. Anyway, home renovations is one. Number two, flashy cars. Yeah, flashy cars is probably definitely a sign of a midlife crisis. I think that, the old story, or the old, thing you see with old men and buying a brand new Porsche or Lamborghini or whatever, some sporty car that they never had as a kid, they want to get because they can afford it now as an adult, and they're trying to relive their youth or whatever. I don't think that I'm like that at all. I've never been a young person. Do you know what I mean? I've always been an old soul, as I say. Even when I was little, I was mature. I was very mature, much more mature than people my own age. And I preferred to hang out with adults, whether it was my teachers or my parents or my family, aunts, uncles, whatever. I never really was that into other kids. I mean, I had friends, lots of friends, but I was friends with them, and of course we were into each other and we had fun together, whatever. But I mean, generally speaking, I had a handful of good friends that were my age, but the rest of the people I hung out with were older. And I've always been that way. And when I was like a teenager and in my 20s, everybody else was drinking and like getting drunk and doing pot and smoking or whatever. I smoked for 1 week in my entire life and that was it. And I did nothing for me. And I drank and I got drunk occasionally, and I would go out to the clubs and stuff like that and have fun. But I was never like somebody who lived in the clubs and like had to be there every single night. I mean, there was a year like in my 20s, like 20, I'd say between 20 and 22, that I was in the clubs a lot because that's typical. But I was never really like my friends. I mean, my friends were very promiscuous, sexually promiscuous. I wasn't, not because I didn't have the opportunity to be, but I just was not a promiscuous individual. I was watching today something from Designing Women, and this relates to this. And it reminded me of this as a kid. And as a kid, I was not somebody who liked to sleep around. Okay. I was very much a romantic. I was a gentlemanly kind of guy. I was very kind of old school, I guess, because I did grow up around a lot of people who were older than me. And I just had I didn't have this loose, free-spirited attitude towards sex and relationships like most people my age did. And I was very much into just having a relationship. That's what I wanted more than anything, was having a relationship and being in love and married eventually and all that stuff, in my 20s and stuff, my teen years. I was very serious very fast whenever I would be with somebody. And my friends were very casual. There was very casual sex and they could just have casual relationships. I was never like that. And I didn't really sleep around a lot for that reason. But anyway, so as on Designing Women, Julia Sugarbaker had said on the episode about it's killing all the right people, about the AIDS episode where their friend had AIDS and her friend was a complete bitch about it to this guy, Tony Goldwyn, as a matter of fact, from Scandal. She said whatever, or before she met with, before she saw her friend, she said, whatever happened to being, why is it that whatever happened to being selective and being discriminating about your partners or sexual partners was considered classy, was considered virtuous, was considered to be something to aspire to, as opposed to just giving it up to anybody who wanted it. And that's how I always was. And I don't know if it's because I was raised that way or whatever, but I think it probably had a lot to do with it. I just was not, I was very, and so I always felt like a fish out of water when I was dating in those days in my 20s, because I was so ready for a relationship and nobody else was, you know. Whether I was dating somebody who was older or younger or my age or whatever, no one ever wanted a relationship, because if they were older, they saw me as a 20-something who was just young and looking for fun and didn't take me seriously, just wanted to have sex and hang out. And that was okay to some degree, but if I got serious about them, then it wasn't. And then the younger guys, or guys my age, of course, were only looking for sex or whatever, generally speaking, especially my close friends. And so it was really difficult for me. But anyway, my point was in all that is that I just never really had much of I was always kind of an old soul anyway. So having a midlife crisis through an old flashy car has never been me. I mean, I have a car I like anyway, so it doesn't matter. Number 3, improvements to appearance. I am doing that. I lazed off for about a year on working out. And so I've been doing P90X3 now again for a while, I guess 3 months now. And it's really made me feel better about myself again in terms of my visual, how I look or I look in the mirror, I'm happier or whatever. My butt's firmer again, and and my legs are firmer, and everything's firmer, which is good. And so I'm not a model or anything yet the way I want to be, but I'm getting there again. So I feel back to where I was before, which is I'm not quite back to where I was before, but I'm getting there. Of course, I'm very hard on myself that way. If I find the smallest flaw, I have an issue with it. And so I guess I look in the mirror. I do try to make things look as good as possible, but I think that's just anybody. I don't think I'm having a midlife crisis, but maybe I am. Who knows? Number 4, dream vacations. Taking dream vacations can be a sign of a midlife crisis. Well, I have been thinking about going to Europe again lately a lot. I've been talking to my husband a lot about us going to Europe, and he's never been. I have, of course, but he's never been. And actually, we were planning a trip to go to Europe, to go to London, then Paris, then Barcelona, then Venice, then Rome, then up to Geneva, Switzerland, then to Berlin, Germany, and then to Amsterdam, and then home. That was the plan. And so I think we're planning that. The only problem is finding a time where he can get off of his work, because he doesn't work for himself like I do. And planning it out that way. And she's trying to find something else. Actually, he hates what he's doing right now, so he's trying to find something else. But hopefully we'll be able to do that this year. Hopefully. That's the plan anyway, late in the fall or something. But Europe is fantastic. I don't know if you guys have been there, those of you listening live or in the archives, but I had certainly felt when first time I went there that it was more like home to me than America has ever felt. And I kind of shudder saying that, because as an American, you're really raised to be patriotic, and America is the best country in the world, and blah blah blah, or whatever bullshit they feed us as children. But the truth is that Europe really had an energy that resonated with me personally. It was much more, I guess, because as I was talking, I'm more of an old soul. I'd say Europe is an old soul and America is a young soul, because America's young. It's only 300 so years old. Europe is thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And so not only is that present in the architecture, it's present in the culture and the way people think and the way people act, et cetera, and treat one another. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. It's not. It's got many issues, just like America does. But it is depending on what country you're talking about in Europe, but it is generally far more refined and far more elegant and far more mature than America is. And so I think that's why it really resonated with me, and I loved it so much, and I love going there. Every time I go there, I literally feel like, some people, like a lot of African Americans will say when they go to Africa that they feel like they have been home or whatever, because it resonates with them because of their race or whatever in some way. And even though I'm half African, I've never been to Africa. But I do feel the same way that they feel about that as about Europe. And when I go there, it resonates with me somehow on that kind of visceral level. I don't know why, but it does. But in France, France isn't. I speak French, and so when I'm in France, it's easy for me to get along. But you don't even need to speak French in France, or specifically in the cities like Paris or whatever, because people there all speak. They speak English, and that's another thing. Like America. It's like people, Americans are so fucking stupid, generally speaking, okay? We are dumb as a country. When you go to other countries like that, really educated countries where education is mostly free, and especially up to college in most countries in Europe, and everybody's educated, everybody speaks more than one language, is required to learn more than one language, whereas here, it's not a requirement. Here, it's an elective. I know when I was in high school that I had to, did I have to take French, or did I take it because I wanted to? I can't remember. I don't think I had to take a language. I can't remember if I did or not. Maybe I did. I think our school system that I went to required us to have a language, which is rare. Most school systems don't require you, especially nowadays. Now they don't require it at all, I don't think. But I think learning another language, excuse me, and learning another culture really opens your mind and broadens your mind and your horizons, and makes you feel like you're not the only fucking country in the world. Like the whole world doesn't revolve around your country and who you are, that there's a whole other way of thinking and living out there besides you. And I think it's important, and I think it's really important. And I think that's one thing that's missing from a lot of millennials today, and that generation, is that they feel like the whole world revolves around them. And that's partly the fault of their parents, which some are Gen Xers and some are baby boomers. But it's partly their parents' fault. But it's also the fact that they haven't had any real need for a reference to outside of themselves, outside of being an American. They think it's all about shopping and getting and consuming things, because that's what America has been about for the past 30 years, is consumerism and capitalism and money and power and the things that really don't fucking matter at all and don't create shit. I have a major issue with all that bullshit. And I think that the things that matter are all the things that are being taken away from the schools. For example, the arts, taking away music, and some school systems don't even have music anymore, like a choir or a band. I mean, how can you not have fucking music? And then others don't have theater programs. Others don't have foreign language programs, like I said. I mean, it just baffles my mind. And of course, there's physical education that's being completely ripped out. Unless you're in football or cheerleading or something, then it doesn't matter because it doesn't make them any money. So it's just really fucking frustrating that all the things that matter about life to me, which are cultural things generally speaking, the arts, music, fine art, music, theater, film, even, all of these things are so, architecture, are so important to me as a human being, and I think they're important to most people, and I think they're important to humanity to have these things. And when you get rid of them, you're losing essentially the soul of humanity, because that is the soul of humanity, the things I mentioned. It's not Wall Street. It's not politics. It's not it's not war. It's not these things that don't fucking matter in the end. It's the things that make us human that matter, and they're taking all those things away from our kids. I don't have any, but you know what I mean by our kids. So I think it's really depressing, and the direction the country's going, and in a lot of ways, and just our culture has gone. I mean, it's kind of an embarrassment. What do we even make anymore in America? I know when I was a kid, I would find stuff all the time. All my toys would say "Made in the USA," "Made in the USA," "Made in the USA," "Made in the USA." I remember I was an Inquisition